I wonder what it is that makes adults that have kids that are already grown up, like 16, 17, and above, that makes them afraid of their child growing up. There's this little thing that I see so many times that parents do where when the kid that they have is all grown up already, able to do their own laundry, their own cooking, their own cleaning, their own everything. They can do everything on their own. They are basically self sustaining. When that child tries to make a decision of their own, the parent right away intervenes and says, no, 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 no. You're too young to make these kind of decisions. I wonder why we treat children this way. I would want to be confident enough in my raising of my child that when my child is 16, 17 years of age and above, that if my child wants to make a decision, obviously not something like, hey dad, I'm gonna go get like 3 ear piercings, or hey dad, I'm gonna go get like this crazy neck tattoo. Like, I'm not talking about those kind of decisions. I mean decisions as like trying to get a job somewhere, working, trying to get their driver's license, trying to, maybe pay for some bills, or maybe buying themselves something, or whatever the case may be, but like adult decisions. The parents always intervene and say, hey, it's not time for you yet to make that decision for yourself. I don't know why this is. If you're a parent and you have a child in this like age range, you got to tell me if you are similar or if you're the complete opposite. Because I see this all the time. Like my father on the opposite side, my father literally raised me because he wanted me to be that self-sustaining person. So he raised me in a way where he wanted me to make my own decisions. Yes, he gave me advice and he wanted me to follow his advice. But if I made my own decision, my father's only question is, can you do it? No problem. Go ahead, do it. Like I wanted to get a car, for example. So my father sat me down and he said, hey, listen, the car is going to cost you $150 a month. The insurance is going to cost you $100 a month. Gas is going to cost you anywhere between $80 to $100 a month. Plus any other expenses like tolls, all these other things. Like he would add it up for me. And he'd be like, well, at the end of all of this, it's like about $700 to $800 a month for a car. Even though that the lease or the finance or whatever is 150, all these other expenses add up, things that obviously kids and people who are younger, they don't think of these things. So your parents' job is to explain all that to you. And hopefully it's at a young enough age. So when you're 16, you already know how this stuff works. But yeah, he basically would sit me down and say, hey, can you do this? Can you afford $700 a month? And I would say, well, yeah, dad, I could afford it. Okay, son, no problem. And I'd be able to, I got myself my first car, or rather, my brother had the car, and then I took over that lease. And it's the same thing with the second lease. My brother had it, I took over. And then eventually I ended up getting my own car. But essentially, in terms of payment, I was paying for everything on my own because my father wanted to make sure that I was able to do it. But otherwise, he would never in a million years be like, no, it's too early for you to have your own car. You don't need your own car. We have a family car. You could get around on the train. That would be so stupid, in my opinion. Why is it that if your son or your daughter could afford something for themselves and they want to get it for themselves, you should be turning that into like a life lesson for your child. Like, okay, let's turn this into something that they can have a teachable moment from this. And so that hopefully there's a good enough lesson to be learned. And hopefully it's a really positive lesson to be learned. And not like, well, I'm going to let my kid buy this thing that's obnoxiously expensive and they're going to lose a lot of their money and it's going to lose its value very quickly and it's not going to be what they expected. And so now I'm going to just let them spend thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars, whatever you consider expensive. And they're going to lose all that money because that's a mistake. I wouldn't necessarily want that kind of lesson to be learned. I would want like a good lesson to be learned from it. Like I would want the responsibility of making that decision and succeeding and making that decision properly and making sure that everything goes in the positive. In that situation, you could teach responsibility that way. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great method. Letting your child do their own thing. It's the same thing that we do. Like, I have a 2-year-old son. Right now is a period in time where he's becoming a little bit more independent. He can eat by himself. He can turn on the TV by himself with the remote. He can call people on the phone by himself. He can speak to Google. He can speak to Siri. He can do all these things by himself. So if he could already do this at 2 years old, I want to be able to let him do more and more on his own with time, so that when it comes to that 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old stage, like, he's well beyond his years, so that mentally he's a 30-year-old and a 35-year-old, like, he's way beyond the curve. I feel like children are such good sponges that you should be putting all your effort into teaching them every single thing as quickly as possible, because you want your child to be better than you. There is no world in which you're going to always know better than your child. It just doesn't exist. I'm sorry, it does not exist. Because I know for sure in 20 years, life's going to be completely different. It really is. It's going to be so different than it is now. I literally made a video thinking about what's going to happen 20 years from now. Where are we going to be? What's money going to look like? Is anything going to have value anymore? We have these conversations, and at the end of the day, you know that your child is one day going to know way more than you. And they're going to be in touch with the times of their generation. I was working today with my coworker who is basically a full generation older than me. Like, she could be my mom, probably. And so whenever she's using the computer, she's super slow. Yeah, she knows how to use it. She knows where the settings are, all this stuff. But hey, if I told her you got to connect a printer, or you got to connect something via Bluetooth, or you got to go into like the settings, or you got to go into the configuration and like do some stuff, can you find me the IP address of the computer? Like, she can't do that. She doesn't know. But I know, because I've observed it enough times through YouTube videos, through my IT guys, like remoting into the computer. I know what to do because I've seen it well enough, but she doesn't really know. Even though she's using the same computer as me, she's not stupid. It's just a generational disconnect. So obviously, in that regard, I know a lot more than her. Now, that doesn't mean that now I'm smarter than her by by everything. Like, she has way more knowledge because of lived experience than me. But lived experience and wisdom from that lived experience doesn't equate to, you know, greater or better than that person. It's the opposite. I shouldn't say it's the opposite, rather, but it's not that. It's just not. At the end of the day, your child is supposed to outgrow you. So if your child comes up to you and says, "Hey, mom, I want to get a license," or "Hey, dad, I want to get a driver's license." Oh, no. There's no way you're going to get behind the vehicle. Oh, no, sir. Oh, no, you can't. I'm afraid, because I have this internal fear, like, oh my God, cars are dangerous. Accidents happen every day. That's not a good thing to do. Instead, I'd be like, okay, no problem. I would want to teach my son how to drive early on. Like, my father was literally teaching me how to drive. Like, I would be in the passenger seat and he'd be driving, and he'd pretend like I'm not holding the wheel, and I would literally from the passenger side like hold the wheel for him and make sure that the car is inside the lane, like getting a feel for how the wheel is. Eventually, I started to drive. When the first time I took a lesson for driving, the driving instructor was like, "Dude, have you driven before?" And I was like, "No." It's literally my first time actually behind the vehicle, like the front, the driver's side is the first time I'm at the driver's side and I'm actually driving myself. He's like, "I find that hard to believe because it feels like you've been driving for so long." That is my point. Therein lies my point. If my father taught me young enough, and now I'm 16 at the time. I'm 16, I'm like, I want to get my license. And now the instructor, who was an amazing instructor, by the way, he propelled my driving even furthermore. But the instructor, who's been driving for more than 20 years, tells me that it feels like I'm driving with experience. All because my father taught me at a young enough age. Teach your kids young. Do the correct thing early on. Let your kids surpass you, parents. Let them be better than you. Stop being afraid of them being independent and making their own decisions. Because guess what? They're going to end up doing it themselves anyway. And you don't want them to be a 35-year-old baby. You want them to be a 35-year-old super wise, well-off person with an amazing family already of their own. Like, you want them to exceed your expectations. You don't only want them to meet your expectations. Like, if you imagined your child graduating college at like 25 years old, for example, but they somehow managed to graduate at 20 years old, is that really such a bad thing? Just because they made the correct decisions in school and they took extracurricular courses and they overwhelmed themselves with extra work, they made it work. Your children will succeed if you put them on the correct path to grow and mature much faster. That is my message to you. Hopefully today was better than yesterday. I will see you all in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.